Hello, I'm Dan Plashkes, CEO and one of the founders of S&P Data, and welcome to another segment of Truth or Share, where everything you always wanted to know but we're afraid to ask. And we are going to talk about a topic. I have with me Erin Gray, Vice President of S&P Data, and Erin has just recently joined us. And the topic today is something that we've had great response on. That's our diversity and inclusion. Just as a background, our company, we don't just talk about diversity and inclusion. 80% of our company is a diverse workforce, and we're extremely proud of it. Mm-hmm. There are no glass ceilings, but we're going to talk about glass ceilings, and we're going to talk about you joining the company. So this morning I was listening on CNBC, by the way, Erin, and a couple things have come to mind. Two things. Recently, the CEO of Wells Fargo was saying that he was having trouble finding enough talent that's to fill out his diversity and inclusion quota, which came under huge controversy. Yeah. And then a guy this morning said, if it's a tie, then I'm going to go for the diversity and inclusion. But when we hired you, it wasn't a tie. It was a clear-cut victory. Yeah. And, I'd like to think I never made the decision. Women and minorities are more the majority of the people, and women are at least 50% of the workforce. So it's not hard to find the right talent, and I think we've always done that. But anyhow, welcome to S&P Data, and I wanted to talk to you. Your background is financial services, right? Very dominant financial services. I know you've gone a little left and right from that, but tell me about how you've progressed career-wise, and if you ever, number one. Number two is, have you ever felt that there was a glass ceiling?
Well, sure. I think in the beginning, especially working for one of the big five banks, the largest bank in Canada. In the beginning, it was I was in a call center environment, so there is always loads of women in the call center environment. So it was easy for me to find representation of female leaders in a junior leadership environment because the call center was predominantly women. But then when you would look up the ladder, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. It was the majority of them were men as you got into the VP and up. And so in the beginning, it did seem daunting. Like, can I have a career in customer experience? Do I have to go into human resources? Because that seems to be where where you see
very dominant
women. But I wanted to stay in customer experience. And then as time was progressing, there was, you did see that glass ceiling start to crack. And you did see women moving up within their careers within the call center environment. And it was hard, though. I remember, being compared, you had customer service call centers, and then you had, support desk call centers, which were part of the IT department.
IT, of course.
And they were all, predominantly men in those departments, and then the customer service was predominantly women. And, the IT side were always paid more than the customer service side. And I would argue that and say, why are they paid more than mine?
Right, they're not customer facing usually either.
And they say, oh, well, because they have a technical background. I'm like, no, they change passwords. there's some technical requirement, but...
The level one is certainly basic.
Sure, and also I said, what, the customer service, the soft skills are incredibly important and very valuable, and not just easily trained. So, that was, an argument I would constantly have in my career of why I had to... I was hiring people for my team, and then my counterpart, who was usually a male, was hiring new agents for his team, and he was able to attract better talent because he could pay more. So that was, an argument I always had, and that, softer skill areas predominantly are have women in them, and they usually have lower salaries than compared to tech teams. Right. So that was something that I noticed early on in my career. And again, that is changing because, the idea of having empathy and being able to portray a sense of customer experience on the phone was becoming more and more valuable to the company. Again, the smart companies were realizing that is a huge value for the company. And so that's when I noticed that, the glass ceiling was starting to crack. And, people in these middle management levels of customer service that were normally women were now being able to move up in their careers. So it was an exciting time.
And do you think that ceiling has been broken today?
I don't know if it's been completely broken. I think we're seeing a lot, like when I see faces that come across the screen of, chief customer officers or a senior vice president of customer experience that, are predominantly women. It's very...
You're proud.
Yeah, I'm very proud to see it. I'm very heartening to see it. But then there's things that happen where, I'm very active on LinkedIn, as you know, and, a year and a half ago, I posted something that, it was a screenshot of my sister's tweet that actually went viral on Twitter. So I screenshot it thinking, well, I don't think it'll go viral on LinkedIn, but it did. I had almost 4.5 million views of this LinkedIn post. And what it was
what did it say?
Well, it was a screenshot, a picture of a termination letter that my mother received when she was pregnant with my sister in 1969.
Unbelievable.
And it was saying, basically, you're pregnant, you're fired. And so my sister posted on Twitter, and I posted it on LinkedIn. And it was posted to celebrate, to say, hey, my mother kept this letter, pretty much to, say to my sister and I, hey, I hope you don't have to put up with this crap when you, when you're in the workforce.
Wasn't that long ago, right?
Wasn't that long ago. And so the response I got was amazing. I mean, it got a lot of likes. I mean, there was like 50,000 likes, and it was a great response. The majority of the comments were more than, supportive. But there was still a lot of comments of, stop whining, it was 50 years ago. What's the big deal? Why, mat leave, cripples companies. And I
can't believe that.
I couldn't believe some of the commentary I was getting. So sometimes I think, I get, that was a sort of a moment where I was reading those comments going, wow, I can't believe people still think this way. But then I remind myself that was a small minority. The vast majority of the comments were, I can't believe that, thank God we've come as far as we've come.
Do you know, it's interesting you say that, but can you imagine this COVID-19 in many ways has accelerated a lot of options for not just women or minorities, but for workers, right? I remember my sister-in-law worked at Leo Burnett, and she had a baby, and she went to the very senior executive. She was a senior executive. And she basically said, I only want to work 3 days a week. And they thought about it, and they said yes. Now, this was, goodness, her kid must be 26, 27 years old. So this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you think, and I thought it was pretty forward-thinking, right? But I think now, I met this couple last night walking our puppy, and they had a puppy, and they got a puppy. And I said, oh, great. How old is puppy? 3 months. We figured that because we're going to be working at home for the near future, we might as well get a dog to go with the kid. But it makes you think, right? Yeah. To think of now, analogize that to your mother, who, there wasn't technology.
She walked around with a pregnant belly. I mean, get out of here.
Can you imagine? But anyhow, it's really interesting what's going on. Listen, there's so many problems with diversity and inclusion. We've got the Me Too movement. I mean, these are all good things. So there's a lot of airplay. It really bothers me, candidly, that companies have to actually deliberately think of how to improve.
It's little things, and I think this is where, because people have asked me, how do we improve on representative women? And I said, it's more than just making sure that you're looking at, your leadership team and thinking, okay, what are we missing here? What opinions are we missing? What insights could we be missing by not having, a person of color or, a certain gender on the leadership team? But once they're on the team, or once they're a member of the team, it's also how you approach it. And I'll never forget, I was invited to a session where some of the operations leaders were looking at their field staff, their field manager staff, and I was invited just to understand and appreciate the value of reviewing the HR process in the company I was working at. And they put up the numbers of this gentleman who was a leader in the field, and he had great numbers, great results, had great employee feedback, but he was off on disability at the moment because he had heart surgery. And they said, okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to put him in the quadrant of moving up to the next level? Is he promotable? And they said, absolutely. This guy's, when he comes back from he's going to want to get out there and really, hit the ground running. He's going to want to get there. So they put him in the top quadrant. A couple of other conversations later, they came to a woman leader. Same tenure as this Jen had, pretty much similar numbers. She had, great scores, great employee engagement, and she was on mat leave. Same thing. When she comes back, do you want to put her in the top quadrant? Well, maybe not yet, because she's probably going to want to focus on her family. So let's put her in the to be determined box. And that's it. That's the systemic, gender bias that you don't think you hear. With this guy, he's like, oh no, he's going to want to hit the ground running when he comes back. And with the woman, she's like, oh, she's probably not going to want it. She's going to want to focus on her family. And instead of just asking the question, it happens all the time. And it was so subtle, too.
Must be very frustrating.
Yeah.
Must be very. In my situation, I think I was explaining to you, I came from, my parents were divorced, and my mom raised us for, my dad came back in our lives 4 or 5 years later. My mom got remarried, my dad, everyone was happy. But for a few years, my mom raised me. So I've always been extremely sensitive. She worked and raised kids. Wasn't easy, right? And I've always been very sensitive to, we had a woman that worked with us for years. She's now living in Las Vegas. And, she raised a kid while working at S&P Data. And I've always had that view, whether it's Brian Cato, me, we expect you to work very hard, but we also, even before this at-home practice came out, work hard, but you can work hard from home too. As long as you're in contact, but you got to also raise a family, because they got to see the benefits and the fruits of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we've had, like, Brian's put his kids, Brian works his ass off, pardon the, you don't have to beep that out, guys. But Brian does, and he's also raised 2 kids. One of them is a AAA, now he's in the OHL, which is an advanced hockey league. But AAA hockey means he's playing every day, and he's worked with his wife, divorced, to make sure that those kids get to hockey. Yeah. He'll go to hockey, but he'll take my call, or he'll do his thing. It's really phenomenal. Absolutely. There's no excuse for saying that a woman has a glass ceiling, is my point.
Yeah, no, you can do both. And it's not just, being family balanced, and work-life balance isn't just for women anymore. There's lots of fathers who want to have that too. They want to have the same relationship and the same, participation in their kids' extracurriculars that the moms have. And they want to help with homework, and they want to do that too. So it's not just, work-life balance isn't, just for women. It's for everyone.
So to wrap up, if you were to put your own feeling, progress has been made?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
There's still ceilings to break?
There's always a ceiling to break.
And you're always going to be a rebel without a cause?
I'll be up there with my hammer trying to crack at it.
That's great. Good. Anyways, Erin Gray, thank you. And again, remember, everything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask. And please remember, the truth shall set you free. Thank you for joining another episode of Truth and Share. Erin Gray, thanks a lot.
No problem. Thank you.